Welcome to KBS World Radio. You're now tuned in to Korea24's Korea Book Club, where we explore the world of Korean literature. This is our weekend replay edition, playing back our book segment from Wednesday's show. We hope you enjoy it. I'm your host, Kwon Jang. We have joining us on the line now our literary critic Barry Welsh. Barry, hello. It's good to talk to you.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, thank you for connecting with us, even though I understand that you are feeling a bit poorly today, which is why you weren't able to come in today, but we hope you feel better soon.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, so what book are you introducing to our listeners today? I believe it is a work that was originally published more than 3 decades ago now.
Yes, that's right. So tonight we're reviewing a novel called The Poet. The Korean title is Sheen, and it's by Yi Mun-yol. It was translated by Brother Anthony and Chong-wha. It was originally published, like you said, in 1991, with the English translation following in 1995. And of course, Yi Mun-yol is one of Korea's most celebrated and highly regarded writers. He was born in 1948, debuted in 1979, and since then he's published more than 30 works. He's sold millions of books, been translated into dozens of languages, and won numerous literary awards, including the Korean Literature Award in 1983 and the Hohem Arts Prize in 1999. And he is also responsible for many classic works, including Our Twisted Hero, which we reviewed not too long ago, and Son of Man, among many more. He's now in his 70s, and he hasn't published anything since 2016, and it seems like he's essentially retired, I think. Today's novel is one of his most celebrated books, and one that, so long after it was first published, continues to spark debate and captivate casual readers and academics alike. The Poet is a historical novel. It tells the life story or parts of the life story of a near legendary Korean poet called Kim Pyong-yeon, or as he was more commonly known, Kim Sagat. And Kim was born in the 19th century, and he was born into the powerful Kim dynasty. So Kim is one of the powerful family names in Korea. But due to crimes that were committed by his grandfather, which we'll talk about a bit more in a minute or two, I'm sure, his family were stripped of their status, their sort of high and noble status, and he became a vagabond poet traveling the country. And it's a fascinating story. It's a compelling story, and it's one that I'm sure lots of readers would still appreciate today.
Right, so this story is by a celebrated author about a celebrated poet.
Right.
So just to give a bit more background to this poet, Kim Sagat, or Satgat is actually how you say it in Korean, was born at the beginning of the 19th century in 1807. This is the late period of the Joseon dynasty in Korea. It was a time when Korean society was still deeply hierarchical. Kim was born into a powerful wing of the Kim clan, as he said, known as the Kims of Changdong. As a son of this powerful clan, Kim would be raised to assume a role as a scholar, gentleman, and inherit his father's position as an influential administrator of their local region. Yet this did not come to pass, and Kim spent his life in poverty, traveling the country as a vagabond, as you said. You've hinted at it already, but what caused this dramatic change in Kim's fortunes?
Right, yes. So, his place in society, it seemed set upon his birth. He would receive this appropriate schooling for someone of his birth rank, and he would take this sort of honorable and prestigious position in society. But in 1811, so just a few years after he was born, his entire family line, his sort of wing of the family, is cast down. They're sort of cast out of favor, and this is because his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, who was an official and administrator of a town in the Pyongyang province, he was the administrator there when the region was taken over by bandits who were sort of fighting against the government. And as the official of the region, a sort of a notable official, he was taken prisoner. But to help protect the local people, he supported the bandits and was apparently sympathetic to their anti-government aims. And so when the government army arrived and sort of put down this rebellion, defeated this rabble of bandits, Kim was seen as a collaborator, and he was executed for helping the bandits, even though it's arguable maybe he was doing the best thing for the people. But the law of the time decreed that Kim that Kim Il-sung's descendants, his family members, his sons, should be stripped of their position in society and their ancestral lands confiscated, and that's what happened.
Okay, so how is this portrayed in the story then? Kim was only a child when these events were unfolding, so how did he become, should we say, aware of them, and how did his family react in this story?
Right, so the opening section of the novel is very gripping. So in this brilliantly, intensely realized first section of the book, we see through, the four-year-old Kim Jong-un's eyes as his father, in the middle of the night, sends the young and uncomprehending Kim and his slightly older brother away with a servant, to live in a distant part of the country, in case they're perhaps murdered, or they suffer in some way in retribution for their grandfather's actions. So they flee their home, in the black of night to escape government troops who might be searching for them. And from there, Kim, he lives as a commoner, sort of greatly reduced status. But he is reunited with his father and mother several years later, but this doesn't really improve his situation. Their lives are difficult and impoverished, and they're sort of repeatedly turned away wherever they go because people don't want to be associated with the descendants of a trader. They have this sort of stigma on them. And his father dies, while he's still a relatively young man due to these sort of experiences, the difficult life they're living. His brother sort of turns to drink and gambling, as a family sort of scraping a living, doing some sort of farming and various other kind of things. And it's only his mother who sort of retains some kind of hope that their position in society, their station in society might be reinstated. And her hope for this is that she'll have Kim pass the administrator exam, right? So these exams which could change your role in society. And so Kim, he dutifully studies for it, but he doesn't end up taking the exam. And, these experiences and this sort of unique situation that he's in, they eventually lead to this really radical decision, really, to abandon any attempt to live a regular life, and this sets him out on his journey as a traveling poet.
Okay, so he sets out on the road. What is his life then like as a traveling poet, and how do his life experiences shape perhaps the poetry he became so famous for? Right,
yeah, so it's really interesting, the way this is depicted in the book, right? So he realizes that despite this education, he's got the education of a gentleman, of a noble, but he's even if he passes this exam, he's never going to be able to progress because of this sort of stigma that's on his family name. He'll never rise in society. He can't restore his family. And so, he makes what, seems like an awful decision. He turns his back on everything, including he has a wife and a young child at this point. And he sets out on the road with this sense of shame and guilt hanging over him. And this is when he decides to wear this hat. It's like a wide bamboo hat that gives him his name, Kim Sagat. So sometimes he's called the rain hat poet because farmers would wear it to keep the rain off, or to keep the sun off their faces. And he wore it to hide his face from the sun, he says, to sort of symbolize his shame for his grandfather's transgressions, for this crime that he didn't himself commit. And so he wanders the country, and as he does so, his poetry goes through these different stages. At first, he's seen as an educated person. He does have the schooling, and so he entertains, the nobles and the aristocrats with the classical poetry that was popular at the time. But he realizes that these people are hypocrites. These are the people who are responsible for repressing the workers and the commoners and the masses. So then he moves among those people, the poor and the workers, and he writes poetry for them about their life, and that poetry is sort of more ribald and coarse, but he becomes beloved among the people for these poems. But then he realizes again that this poetry isn't changing anything. He's not challenging the status quo or fighting corruption. And so he joins like a bandit group who are, they're trying to fight against the government, and he turns his poetry to writing poems to try and inspire people to rise up against the injustice that they live under. And then finally his poetry sort of turns to what it means to just be human at all, at all, as he kind of declines into his old age. And one of the strengths of the book, or at least one of the strengths that I thought, was that how that sort of journey is realized, how these stages are described and the reasons behind them, like why he goes through that evolution. It's very captivating. There's a real sense of this mind progressing through stages, reacting to the world around him. And I think Yi Mun-yol does a really good job of like illuminating a poet's mind, and then also like shining a light on aspects of the period and social conventions of the time.
And briefly, Barry, this novel is generally regarded as a classic. It tells the story of this 19th century poet, Kim Satgat. It was published over 3 decades ago. So does it still speak to modern readers, though? Does it have anything to say to the modern world or contemporary society?
Right, yeah, I think it does. It's about power and what controls us and how we react to that power. We all exist within structures. We behave in certain ways, and sometimes we're not even sure why. And Kim Sagat's story shows that we can bring these structures into focus. We can become aware through poetry or other means or ways of seeing things that are the things that are guiding us or repressing us. Some of these things might be unconscious. Kim might have remained blind to the suffering of others, of the privilege of the upper classes, if he hadn't been forcibly removed, unexpectedly removed from among them. And his journey shows how I think we can become aware of power structures that are around us, as well as many other things. It's a rich and thought-provoking book, and I think it deserves to be read outside of the academic world where it's often confined.
Well, that's quite the endorsement. Once again, it's called The Poet by Yi Mun-yol, and the full translation of the text is available on Brother Anthony's website. We will provide links on our Korea24 social media pages, such as Twitter and Instagram, so do check that out as well. That's all for Korea Book Club this week. Barry, as always, thank you for your thoughtful review. We always appreciate it. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, take care.
KBS World Radio offers all you need to know on Korea through its various programs. Tune in to One Fine Day with Lena Park, enjoying the K-pop diva for 2 fine hours every weekday. Are you into the latest K-pop tracks? Then K-pop Connection is your fix. Brian Ju brings you the best of K-pop and K-culture. On Korea24, host Kwon Jang-ho helps listeners digest all the biggest stories coming out of South Korea. Keep up with what's happening on the peninsula by listening to Korea24. Learn about Korean folktales on Mondays with global audiobook Once Upon a Time in Korea. If you're a bookworm, don't miss Books on Demand, a program that introduces Korean literature to the global audience every Tuesday. Our Wednesday program, Korea Today and Tomorrow, provides news on the latest diplomatic developments in and around the Korean peninsula. Want to go deeper than K-pop? Sounds of Korea takes a closer look at various traditional music every Thursday. KBS World Radio is your go-to channel for all things Korea. Tune in!